Just goes to show, if you put a small amount of bait in the right place, there's bites to be had. And away. Well, hello and welcome. You join me here today on the Manor Farm complex at Biggleswade. More specifically, I'm on the Carp Lake. I've got about 24 hours ahead of me. The rods are out. Unfortunately, it hasn't stopped raining since we got here. And what I want to do during this session is talk to you about how you should approach your spring fishing and how you should adapt your fishing as the spring progresses. Room. Well, it hasn't taken too long. I've managed to get my first bite, so yeah, it's nice to get off the mark. Hopefully I can get it in. Doesn't feel particularly big, but a fish is a fish at this time of year. Having a little bit of a go now, isn't it? Oh, hello. There we go. Don't look too bad. Certainly bigger than the first four it was anyway. Yeah, I really did think that was a small fish to start, like a real small fish. A good upper, isn't it? Maybe even a 20. Happy days. He's in. Let's have a look. Oh, he's a 20 pounder. That'll do. Let's get off the mark. Pleased with that. Right. Let's put that in there a second. Nice one. So, just got him unhooked. I'm going to give him a few minutes to recover, and while I do that, I'm going to get my net cover on just to make sure he doesn't go anywhere. Better to be safe than sorry, so to speak. Oh, that's £20.6. That'll do. Well, there you go. Pleased with that. Scraper 20. First bite of the session. Just goes to show, if you put a small amount of bait in the right place, there's bites to be had. So I've repeated again what I've just done to catch this. Again, kept it very light on the bait, so hopefully another one won't be far behind. Yes. So I arrived first light this morning. I'd kind of been pointing in the right direction of where I'm probably wanting to have a look at, which is the bay I've ended up with. And it was evident when I arrived that there was fish here, so they were giving themselves away. And they're not out far, so 20 yards, something like that. So I spent a little bit of time, just had a few casts with a marker leading rod, just to see what it was like out there. And it's generally quite firm, but there is a bit dirty silkweed out there, dead silkweed. So I've tried to avoid that and just try and find a couple of clearer spots, which I've managed to do. I was fishing one of the rods straight out and one round to the left, and so I've managed to nick one already on the rod that's just fished straight out. But yeah, I say already, it's been a few hours now, so it's been quite slow going. I thought it'd be more prolific than it has been. Like I say, because there certainly were fish in the area, and I've kept it relatively quiet. So yeah, fingers crossed for one or two more bites. So how I've approached it bait wise, because there are fish in the area, and like I say, I don't want to make a lot of disturbance, I've kept the bait to a minimal. So I've just been using like mesh bags, the mix of crumb, a bit dead maggot, and a few pellets in it. Nothing revolutionary, but a nice little mix of bait. So hook bait wise, as I said, I'm only fishing with very small baits. So, and because I do think that there is roach and stuff out here. In fact, I did start topping them off with live maggots to start with, but they seem to get cleaned off pretty quick. So what I've done is I've just fishing with one fake maggot on top of, basically it's a little tiny 10mm pop-up, a little 10mm bottom bait, but I've taken them down to about 2/3 like of size, both of them, just trimmed a piece off and backed them up to each other, and just stopped that with a little maggot with a bright pink on top. Again, because I want to try and make sure that they home in my hook bait. The water is quite coloured, so I just think with that high vis and fish in the area, you're more likely to get a pick up, you know, quicker, or your hook bait picked up quicker than if you're fishing a match the hatch in this situation. With today being the first day of March, I kind of see it as it's technically spring, even though you still really got wintry weather. You're still getting some cold spells, there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of cold water going into lakes. So, you know, my approach still would be, while the weather continues on like this, and normally even into probably middle of April, I'll generally keep baiting quite light. And it's the old saying, which has been said 1,000 times, that once you put bait in, you can't take it back out. But you can build a swim, and you can work on a swim, and you can build, you know, you can build that feeding frenzy up, even if there's only a few fish in front of you, especially if you keep it tight and relatively low bait. Yeah, the thing with the season of spring is the start of the spring is completely different to the back end of spring. They're like polar opposites. Obviously, you've got more wintry weather as you normally go into March, and then as you're coming out back end of May, it's more like summer. So out of all the seasons, it's probably got the biggest change in it. And I would say that you want to kind of keep things light on the bait in front to start with, and build up as we go through the spring. So you can catch fish on singles at any time through this period, all the way through it, and you know, bags, etc. But generally, for me, it's probably the most critical time, and baiting becomes probably one of the most important factors through the spring than you know, outside of location. That is the next most important thing. So at the beginning of spring, you're keeping things very light. Naturals still work well, and again, that all depends on how active other species become and if they become a nuisance for you. But even if you're introducing naturals and not fishing them on the hook, they will draw a fish into your swim. And now as the spring develops, then you're looking at introducing more bait, and the fish become more active. You know, they're getting geared up towards spawning, so they're getting up near their, you know, they'll be up near their best weights. So you can introduce a lot more bait. But like I say, just always stick to never go too mad to start with, unless you know that water well and know that they will take a lot of bait and it's not a problem. So it's easier to just work your way in rather than just fill it in to start.
Away?
Oh, hello. I think that's going, mate. Pretty big. We're right in the middle of doing a rig time piece. what I thought was a liner to start, pulled up, dropped back down and then tightened up again, is actually a fish. I don't think it's a very big one, I think it's quite a small one, but it is another bite. So I think I'll get my net and get ready to land this one, because I don't think he's going to put up a massive fight. Shows you how much rubbish there is on the bottom out there, doesn't it? Didn't like that. I'm going to have a pre-landing guess. I've glimpsed it only briefly. I reckon it's about. I'm going to go for £13. Oh, I've had a proper look at it now. I might really want to reassess. Say £8. No. No, it's definitely. I reckon I'm not far off, you know, looking at that. Having seen it properly now. I know, it might be a little bit bigger than that. Might be underselling it a little bit. Alright, here we go. Get it in. Bash. That'll do. Let's have a look at the prize. Mid-double. Yeah, I don't reckon I was far out in my estimates, but it's another fish on a horrible, wet, damp day. Right, well, we're going to give this one away, seeing I thought it was about £13. Kieran says it's 6. So I think it's actually about £16 now. So we're going to give it away anyway, just to confirm. Yeah, I'm starting to look and think, 14. Perhaps I was closer when I first guessed him. He's definitely not a £6 like Kieran's saying. Kieran would be made up with one of these.
It's about £8.
Right. I'm going to show you Mr. £6. Oh, I was pretty close with the. See, I said 16.40, didn't I, at one point? It was about 16.4. Well, there you go. Another nice little mint common. We'll give him a quick hold up for the cameras, but yeah, lovely little clean fish. Well, there you go, not massive, but a lovely condition little common. Just over £16, not £6 as Kieran said he was. Slightly bigger than the £13 that I said he was. So, but yeah, once he was out of the water, I actually called it a 16.4, and that's exactly what he weighed. So yeah, nice to get another one. So I'm going to get him back and keep going. And away. Well, with that fish slipped back, we've got probably an hour and a half of light left. That one came on the left-hand rod, fished a little bit further out and more to the left rather than out in front of me. I do think, even though I kept disturbance to a minimum this morning, I do think they pushed out a little bit because they were definitely here when we turned up. You know, I've done all the right things. I'm fishing with fluorocarbon, I've fished slack lines, and I'm hoping as darkness starts to fall that those fish might drift back in. So they may still be there, they may just not be feeding, but I do feel that they have perhaps pushed out a little bit, but I'm hoping they'll come back in tonight and another 2 fish will hit the bank. Well, we're just in the dark, and the left-hand rod's gone away again. So there's 2 quite quick bites on there, to be fair. It's probably 2 in the last couple of hours. Doesn't feel big, it's banging its head around a lot, but again, it's another bite in horrible weather. So yeah, carry on playing him, get him in. I don't think it's going to take too long because he's doing loads of little head bangs. He's having a go. Open up. I thought he was going to be in the net pretty lively, but they seem to do that as well. Right, swing the pot there. Unconventional way of doing it, but the end result was there. Getting bigger than I first thought. We give them a way to see. What are you going to give me on that one, Kieran?
About £6.
I thought you might. I want to go a little bit bigger than that. Well, there you go, not long into dark. And yeah, I'm not going to weigh him, but I would say he's similar to the last one, 15, 16 pound, mid-double. So I'm not going to mess around with him. Another really clean, common. I'm just going to get him straight back. After a very, very quiet night, not so much as a single liner, just got up just before 6, just watching the water, no signs of fish, and then put the kettle on and out the blue, ripped up. Certainly put up a good account of it soon, as they all seem to have had once you get them close. It's a mirror, I believe. Something a little bit different. Well, as you can see behind me, the sun is just coming up, or it's just starting to get light. I've just had that fish, so I'm going to get him unhooked, get that rod back out as quick as I can, just because perhaps this is the feeding opportunity, the time I wasn't fishing yesterday, so maybe it'll do a bite or two the first couple of hours that I wasn't fishing. Well, there you go, after a very, very quiet night. This one decided to pay me a visit first thing this morning. Smallest one so far, but I think I can say he's definitely the prettiest. But anyway, nice to get a bite. The weather's changed considerably now. It turned really cold overnight, so hopefully it's still active. Got a couple of hours left, so fingers crossed, might be able to get another one yet. Okay, so the rig I'm using for this session, I'd describe as a sort of combi claw type rig. So it's very simple to construct. So the main hook length itself is made from Camotex semi-stiff. And the reason I'm using this is purely because I'm not too sure what sort of nuisance fish are out there. And I'm baiting with maggots as well. So if my rig gets knocked around and moved around, it's highly unlikely to get tangled. And what I've done, I will move on a little bit towards the hook end later on, but what I've done, as you can see by the hook end, is stripped back probably 10 to 15 mil of the coating to form a pivot point and a really loose, so the hook can move around in any direction if the fish comes along and picks it up. So the hook I'm using is actually a wide gape beaked point hook, and the reason I selected this hook is, one, it's got brilliant, once it's in, they generally stay in, they don't come out very easily. It also, if there is nuisance fish out there, I'm fishing onto, like I am fishing onto gravelly areas, and I don't want that point to go over. So, and then what I've done with that is a small piece of silicone on the back of the hook, and then I've got a piece of shrink tubing that I've done liner style, and created a curve in that, which then starts to form what I would call the claw. So you get that real kind of flippery turnover, loads of movement there with the broken coating, etc. And then there's a piece of putty behind the broken section just to help pull the hook down. And then at the far end, I've just done a figure of 8 loop knot. There's an anti-tangle sleeve on there, which obviously one forms anti-tangle properties, but also secures the loop to the quick change swivel. Now, obviously, every rig has to have a bait on the end before you put it on the pond. And what I've actually done here is I've got a small 10mm cell that I've just trimmed back. And I've also got a little cell bright mini pop up there, again, just a trimming of it. And I've secured that as a stop with a rubber maggot, because as I've said, I've been using like live reds and dead reds. So that makes a nice little hook bait. And again, there's all small offerings out there, so I don't want a big bait sitting amongst a load of small offerings. But at the same time, I am trying to make it stand out, hence the pink top. So the pink top is obviously, as I said, it forms part is a pop-up. So what it'll do is it just sits the bait upright. So again, that bright visual is, you know, right up on the top. Anything coming down and it will see that first with the maggot as getting topped off. And being red, it's very visual and coloured water as well. Obviously, with this rig having some buoyancy to the hook bait, it partially negates the weight of the hook. Not fully, but it does. So obviously when fish do come in and move in and suck up anywhere near the bait, it should be one of the first things to go in. So now that I've shown you my rig, I'll show you how you tie it. So to tie this rig, to start with, you'll need approximately 12 inches of Canatex semi-stiff. You'll then need to remove approximately 4 inches of the coating and then tie a small loop to take the bait. Now when doing this, I'll always add the bait to get the correct measurement of the length of the hair I require. Once you've done this, you then slide the small length of silicone down the hook length material towards the bait. Then pass the hook through the silicone and get the hook into position with where you require the hair to be. Once this is done, form a knotless knot. I normally do this with 6 to 7 turns, sometimes more if I need to get the length of the strip back section to where it needs to be. I'll then take a small length of shrink tubing, probably between 12 and 15mm. Now I'm going to fish this liner. So what you need to do here is punch a hole through it near the end with a baiting needle. I normally come through it first, form the hole, and then gab back through the other way. Once this is done and the shrink tubing is in place, all you need to do is obviously steam and form a kind of kicker claw shape. Once this is done, it's a simple case of just tying the figure of 8 loop knot in the other end to complete the hook length. I'll add a small piece of putty where I've stripped back the section near the hook. This helps to obviously turn the hook and pull it into place. So there you go, there's the completed rig. So simple to tie, it's very neat and it's very effective. Well, that's it. My session at Manor Farm has now come to an end. It's been a gruel, not because of the fishing, but because of the weather. It's been pouring down the whole time we've been here. So hopefully you can take something away from this video and use it in your own fishing. But for now, that's me. I've had enough of the rain. The sun's out for 5 minutes and I'm going home. Man, everything is just soaked. I hate packing up in all this horrible wet stuff. Everything's sodden. Happy days. Glad to go home when it's like this. I'm too old for all this rain. It's like a mud bath in my swim. Look at it. Look at it. I've had enough.